Good morning. Today is Sunday, December 22nd, 2024. Let's begin, as we always do, by saying the four immeasurables prayer, by setting our intention and making aspiration. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. I'm going to start by reading. I have to find it. Sorry. So I'm going to read something, and then either we'll meditate or Victoria has some things she wants to talk about. We'll do kind of a semi-review, not a full review of the meditation techniques. Nick, could you put up in the chat button where the last, like, very detailed review of the meditation technique is? Okay, this is not loading, so maybe we'll have Victoria start first. Okay.
Good morning. I'll try not to hit you. When we, in Buddhism, a tremendous amount of study and analysis is given to, a generic term that we call mind. Very clear in Sanskrit and in Tibetan. In Sanskrit, I think there are over 20, 30 or more terms for mind, for consciousness. It is not this generic thing that is applied to everything that is relatable to experience and the cognizant quality of the mind. So this great deal of study is given in order because as we often say in the class, Buddhism, we can also substitute Buddhism for study of the mind. We're working with our mind. We are always working with our experience. We're always working with the conscious quality of our existence. And very often in all of the Buddhist traditions, in Vajrayana, in the Buddhism that Michael and I study, the mind is studied in terms of what is called 8 consciousnesses. So the first 5 are the sensory consciousnesses. Seeing, smell, tactile, olfactory, auditory. Those 5 consciousness, very interestingly, don't cross over to one another. Seeing, as the forms come into our field of awareness, cannot cross with the auditory quality of hearing or smell or touch. They're all like rooms that are locked. And for myself, I find it very, very interesting that these qualities are so isolated and in their own kind of little spheres. We have the organs, we have the sense field, and the sensory objects that come with those 5 fields. So the object of visual consciousness never intersects with the object of, hearing consciousness or smell consciousness or tactile consciousness. What unites all of these consciousnesses and makes sense of the sensory input is what is called the 6th consciousness, is the mental consciousness. That is the consciousness that synthesizes the experience, makes the experience known to us, because our cognition really only happens when the experience of the sensory consciousness, of the one of the five of the sensory consciousness, becomes illuminated and synthesized in this sixth sensory consciousness, the mental consciousness. The mental consciousness is the dimension that now makes it into a full experience. We know what we're touching. We know what we're seeing. We know what we're smelling. There is a cognitive synthetic process that happens to take that raw experience and now make it relatable to us, to our awareness, and really make it into an experience. An experience is not just a physical sensation of something. An experience is something that becomes an object of the mind. So the sixth consciousness, the mental consciousness, which is combined with the five sensory consciousnesses, is what kind of creates that synthetic quality and makes it experience. However, that's not everything that enters and is a basis of what we call an experience. There is the eighth consciousness, and I know I skipped over the seventh because I'd like to talk about it as the last thing. The eighth consciousness is what is called the storehouse consciousness. In Sanskrit, it's called alaya, and in Tibetan, it's called kunji. It's where all the seeds of our habitual propensities are stored. Therefore, for one person who's a botanist, when they see a bee is something that allows for us to have food, that allows, things to grow and, and pollinate and blossom, and all these varieties of life arise because we have this interconnectedness with the bee. But for someone who had an experience near death because of some kind of experience together with the bee that led them to be in the hospital and have this reaction that threatened their life, the same visual experience, the same auditory experience will yield something else, and those traces are what is deposited in that store consciousness. Experiences that we repeat over and over and over again deposit these kinds of karmic seeds that go into our store consciousness. And when we experience things through the six consciousnesses, the five sensory consciousnesses, and the six mental consciousness, the store consciousness informs to a great degree how we will experience those things, what we call out there in the world. And then there is the seventh consciousness. The seventh consciousness is a very particular thing that we need to pay a great deal of attention to. It's called afflicted consciousness. Why is it called afflicted consciousness? For two reasons. It has this ignorance of dualism. The seventh consciousness is the consciousness that carries the notion of the I, the subject. And so with the subject, of course, comes the object. We experience everything in this kind of severed dualistic manner. I experience this. I experience you. I experience the bee. I experience the flower. This seventh afflicted consciousness is called afflicted because of the basic ignorance of this dualism of the world split into two, and also because the ego, let's say this is the ego, it is surrounded by five afflicted emotions. It has ignorance as its basic quality, which is kind of accounts for this dualistic splitting of experience. It has anger. It has desire. And ignorance, anger, and desire are the three basic afflictions, because they split the world into things which we pursue based on our attachment and desire, and the things that we reject, that we are afraid of, things that we fear and we want to avoid. and that has to do with our anger. And then the two kind of other afflictions, mental states, think of them as emotional mental states, and that's jealousy and arrogance. And arrogance has to do with ignorance, because it's kind of an experience of the world of thinking, you know, I am better, etc., etc. But it basically relates to ignorance, as Garchen Rinpoche always says. And jealousy relates to anger, because it is a kind of a subtle experience of thinking, why does that person have it? Why do I not have it? Why is this not mine, etc., etc.? It is related to that basic notion of anger. But anyway, five afflictive emotions wrap the ego. And that's why that consciousness, the seventh consciousness, is called the afflicted consciousness. Because there is really barely an experience ever that all of these 8 elements are not present in. Even though it's very subtle and very, very quick, we cannot really see how all of this is organized into like a simple perception of an object. But you know what? We rarely perceive things out there in the world that are not colored by, first of all, you know, this karmic propensities that arise from Alaya. Then our afflicted consciousness, which judges things, that says this is bad, this is good, I want this, I don't want this is like this is like that. So our consciousness doesn't just say it's yellow, it's square, it, you know, we say it smells nice, it smells bad, it, you know, it's ugly, it's beautiful, etc., etc. That's a full experience, you know, even kind of like an ignorant experience, which says yes, it's yellow and square, because I don't care about it, it's non-threatening to me. It's still characterized by the seventh afflicted consciousness entering it, and the 8th consciousness, which is based on these propensities, which karmic propensities, which are stored in us over countless lifetimes, that synthesizes into a full ordinary experience that we usually take for something as a true experience based on ignorance and affliction. Why do we bring this into conversation? Why do we talk about this? Why do we analyze? Why do we make such a great effort to dissect what is experience and understand these 8 consciousnesses, you know, as a method of understanding what really happens when we perceive stuff, right? And we do that really for one single reason, is so that we can start to ease off and not be so attached and so naive as to think that what we see out there is something that has ultimate reality. You know, what we see is like we see through the glasses of these 8 consciousnesses. So when we know that that's how our experience actually takes place, we can start to ease off on these judgments, on these, you know, until we attain full Buddhahood, we will continue to see things in that manner. Until that store consciousness, the alaya, the kunji, is completely purified of karmic seeds. And until like that ego structure, the 7th afflicted consciousness, is no longer like that tiny little hole through which we see the universe, you know, when it becomes more and more widened by us suspending the judgment. So we will continue to experience through the 8 consciousnesses, but the mind of a practitioner says, oh, I know what's happening. I'm seeing this through my 8 consciousnesses. This is based on my propensities, my afflictions. Also, as a practitioner, I know this is not the nature of my mind. This is the relative way through which I experience all things that I consider, you know, my experiences. Even the sense of self. You know, when I purport this compound personality that I know who I am. I am Victoria, I am a mother, I am a wife, I am this, I am a that. Those are also like objects of our experience. They're also these compounded, conglomerates that are made, through the eight consciousnesses perceiving the world. However, to that experience, there's also like the ground, the space in which experience happens. And that space is that nakedness that sometimes we refer to as emptiness. A better word for it is shunyata, and the pure luminous cognizant quality of awareness. Not awareness of this and that, but simply awareness within which all experience takes place. So as practitioners, we connect to the bigger, pure, just that basic ground space of awareness. It's the sky-like nature of the mind, whereas the particular experiences, objects of experience, my thoughts, my emotions, my judgments, my etc., 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 all of my experiences in this objective manner, object-subject relationship, we kind of start to be easy about them, because we say to ourselves, oh, I'm wearing glasses, so I only see reality in this kind of a very thwarted, diluted sense. Let me not be naive and say what I see is exactly how things are. Let me not have this childish quality. Let me not think that things that I see outside are really outside of me. Let me bring into my experience this awareness that all this kind of subjective material is mixed into the purity of experience. And really let me ease off, especially on the negative qualities that I purport and throw onto what is out there, especially when we deal with others. When we so quickly say, he's bad, this is bad, he is unjust, well, I am just, all these kinds of qualities, when we start to really kind of understand a little bit what enters, all this elemental structure enters into our experience. As practitioners, we can start to have a little more space, because we know that it's like a glass with sediment that we stir when we experience objects, when we experience something in that kind of like the mind grasping to something, we can experience that, but at the same time we could be very more loose and easy and relaxed, especially with the notion, being relaxed with the notion that I know how things are, no, that relative level of experience where eight consciousnesses bring up, the kind of the product of what we experience. We need to know that as long as we are in a relative condition, we will have all of those kinds of things. At the same time, we can make those perceptions, have those experiences within a greater space of awareness by knowing all these things that enter into our experience. And we really, we study this and analyze this with so much precision and detail. We spend so much time and give it so much effort. Why? Not so we can consider ourselves clever, not so we can say to our friends, oh, I know everything about the workings of a consciousness and how experience arises, etc., but rather that it changes the quality of my experience. And what it really changes is like it opens up the space where we are really connecting more to the bare space of experience rather than this and that quality of experience. And that really liberates us. And when we liberate our mind from this like tight grasp of I know how this thing is, it also liberates the thing or the person whom we're judging, whom we're identifying, whom we're labeling, etc., etc. It's for us to become more aware of really how phenomena arise, and when we become aware of how phenomena arise, we can kind of open the spaciousness and create more space within which these phenomena arise, not identifying with the phenomena as they arise in our experience, but rather with this kind of open cognizant quality within all of that, within which all of that experience takes place. And so, uh, you know, just very important to really meditate, analyze. I mean, hearing, studying, pondering, which is analysis, and then meditating. Learn to see the space of awareness. And then when these thoughts arise, they're like little cloud formations and they sink right back into that space of awareness. Let things arise, experience them without so much grasping and attachment, and let them dissolve. Become aware of the two qualities of awareness, the space of awareness and the object of awareness. They're not the same thing. So, because every time that we actually experience things with this kind of grasping and attachment, I know how this thing is. We're not seeing this dualistic split of reality. We're not seeing these likes and dislikes, the aversion and desire. We're not seeing really how experience takes place, and we get very stuck in those little, in those little bubbles. In the meantime, these bubbles arise and then they dissolve. And so let's all as meditators, ease off on this solidity, because that solidity is nothing but ignorance. Let's ease off on the negativity inside that solidity. Let's ease off on the emotional qualities inside these experiences. Let's watch our emotions and judgments and thoughts. Let them arise and let them dissolve. And really stay more on the side of that openness of where you're watching it just like a movie. That's why often we say, in Buddhism, a big difference is not made between a waking and a daytime experience. I mean, we go to bed, we don't have sensory input, but we travel in our sleep, we speak to people, we eat great food, or we experience very frightening things. Sometimes we can die in our sleep because we're reacting to images in our sleep that are very frightening. All the same movies are happening on both levels. In fact, sleep experience is very, very important for Buddhists, but that's a conversation for another topic of conversation. But just kind of, have a little bit of a distance and watch experiences arise and see and say goodbye to them as they dissolve. Be more relaxed with your thoughts, create space around them so you can experience thoughts arising and dissolving. And the more we can have the distance to this, the more the ground, our nature, the nature of mind will become more visible to us, because that nature is non-conceptual, non-dualistic. It's really, the masters always say it's a place of it's natural goodness, it's natural clarity. It's a vast, infinite space of consciousness, not defined by anything. And so really, as practitioners, that's where we really have to kind of make the stronghold. We have to identify more and more and more with that experience, and know kind of like the impermanent quality of things that arise that we call experiences, and have really a very definitive, clear, experiential, directly experiential knowing of this arising, coming, and going. And that's really, very important for us as practitioners.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, this is what I wanted to read. So this is from an Instagram page, Garchen Rinpoche _ quotes. So Garchen Rinpoche is our teacher. But this, I read this earlier this week and wanted to share it today. No matter how vast samsara may be, with limitless beings and limitless universes, it has one single essence. The entirety of samsara is contained within the self-grasping of one single person. The antidote is the altruistic mind. The more you are able to cultivate an altruistic mind, the more it will pervade. If you recognize self-grasping and the self-grasping of all sentient beings, it's exactly the same. In the same way, if you cultivate an altruistic mind, it pervades limitless beings. What pervades is the power of love. That's from Garchen Rinpoche.
I just wanted to add that the spaciousness is what Rinpoche refers to. That should really become our modus operandi. That should become our primary way of feeling and experiencing our own experiences. Our experiences should expand beyond this kind of solid dualistic notion of I know this and that to be like that. Once we expand, kindness and wisdom are those qualities that are that spaciousness, that are beyond that small, fist of the eight consciousnesses.
And this is from Kentro Lodro Taye. This is his Instagram page. So he's also on the Solidago Productions website. He's one of the teachers that we recommend, and his book, The Power of Mind, is a book that we recommend. So you could find information about him on the Solidago Productions website. He quotes from Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. The words people speak are of three kinds, which the Buddha described as being like honey, like flowers, and like excrement. Words that help and please are like honey. Words that are honest and true are like flowers, but violent, harmful words and falsehoods are like excrement and must be abandoned. As Karak Gomchung, a great Lojong master, says, stop shooting the poisoned arrows of harsh speech and give up your ill-natured aggression. Okay, so let us sit in meditation. So we're going to sit in, and there's a link in the chat button to a more detailed review of the basic meditation techniques. Anyway, so we sit on the floor. On a cushion helps always to get your hips either in line or above your knees. You can sit cross-legged, really to the level of your own comfort. And if it's impossible for you to sit on the floor, you can use a chair, but have your feet on the floor and have your back straight, not rigid and tight, but, relaxed, but erect, upright. And the head is upright but tilted slightly forward. The chin is down just a little bit. And the hands can either be resting on the knees, or you can take your left hand, palm up, and the right hand on top, and rest that in your lap. And the important thing is to be, at rest, but alert at the same time. And when you sit, just make an effort just to let tension just kind of leave the body. Let the mind settle. Your mouth can be closed and your teeth slightly apart. Your tongue can rest where the roof of your mouth meets your upper teeth. Breathing through the nose unless it's impossible for you. Eyes open, following kind of the angle of the gaze is like the bridge of the nose. And just resting on whatever's in front of it, not spacing out, unfocused, not intensely focusing, but just resting on whatever's in front of your vision. Breathing through the nose, just an easy breath. Not a fast breath, not a labored, not a deep breath, not a labored breath, but just easy, natural. Let's do 3 of those. Let's do 3 more, but just focus your attention on the place where the air is moving in and out, where the upper lip meets the nostrils. Just focus your attention there as you breathe. And let's do 3 more, focusing your attention in that place where the upper lip meets the nostrils. Focus on the air moving in and out, but also be aware of what's going on in your mind as you do it. Keep going with the breath, stay in the posture. If you need to shift, if you're uncomfortable, just shift and settle back, relax. Focus on the breath. If you need to take a deep breath just to get some extra oxygen, just do it, then go back to the natural breath. Focus your attention on that spot and be aware if a thought has arisen. And don't judge the thought. Don't worry that it's not the right thought. It could be very disconnected to what we're doing right now. It could be about something from the distant past or the future, or something that you have to do later, or something that happened this morning. But just notice the thought. And once you notice the thought, say back to the breath. And again, focus your attention on the breath. And again, become aware of the fact that you're thinking. Just become aware of the thought. What is the thought? Oh, it's a thought about what's going to happen this afternoon. And just go back to the breath, or the visualization we use. And it's a visualization that's happening while your eyes are open, right? So in your mind, you compare or envision your mind as this limitless, infinite, clear, stainless, luminous blue sky. And settle in that calm, sky-like nature of your mind. Because those are the qualities of your mind, limitless. Mind is its ultimate nature is unstained, pure, without any defilement. And these thoughts and emotions just kind of, based on our habitual tendencies, emerge from within that, but dissolve back into it. Victoria was talking about purifying through the practice, and that's what you're purifying, those habitual tendencies, those karmic elements that give rise to the thought or the emotion or the condition. In this practice, we're just letting those thoughts settle. So the thought or the emotion arises within the mind like a cloud arises within the sky. So you see the thought as a cloud that has arisen from that clear, limitless blue sky, and you watch it dissolve back into that same sky without leaving a trace. And that's how we can work with thoughts as we meditate. So go ahead and try that. You're breathing, focusing on the breath, the movement of the breath. A thought has arisen. You could say back to the breath. Or you could see that thought as a cloud that has arisen in that sky-like luminous clarity and dissolves back into her. And repeat. Throughout the session, basically, that's what you're going to be doing. Don't judge the thought. Don't measure it. Don't feel bad about it. It's wrong. It's right. Just notice the thought. And send yourself back to the breath. Or see it as that cloud that has arisen in the sky. Watch it dissolve back into that sky and settle back into that limitless, clear, calm nature of your mind. Again, notice the thought. Become aware of it. See, we can really get lost in this continuous chain of thoughts, one thought into another, and a chunk of time goes by, and we're not aware that we're thinking. We're just kind of lost in it. If that happens, that's okay. Just make the effort to become aware of what the mind is doing, and then apply the technique back to the breath, cloud dissolving in the sky. Back to the breath. Okay. No, and especially in the beginning, you may really take some time before you become aware again that you're thinking, because you really get swept up into, and the thought could start, am I doing this right? Am I not doing it right? And that can remind you of something else. Oh, I took that class or I read that book 3 weeks ago. Oh, where is that book? I gave it to my friend. Oh, my friend's not feeling good. I should call her up and see, maybe send her some soup. Oh, that store went out of business. So I started with my meditation. Now I'm on the store down the corner that went out of business in 2 seconds. That's how basically how we live our lives, how our mind really works. And meditation's really disrupting and interrupting that process. And beginning to have awareness that those thoughts and that chain of thoughts is happening within this really much bigger picture of pristine awareness. And the proof of all this is that when you do apply technique and when you do meditate and when you do actually have moments of rest in that nature of mind, it's always it's always there, and it's always the same. That quality of calm and spaciousness is always there and accessible if you can practice, and if you can apply meditation techniques and work with your awareness. What's not always there is the thoughts, especially the individual story of a thought, which is constantly changing and shifting, like that example I just gave you of that chain of little thoughts that just came. But the consistency really is that sky-like, calm, open, spacious nature of mind that's always there when we can, take the time to and effort to settle into our awareness and touch it. There's a Q&A button. You can ask a question about anything if you like. Any advice on how Buddhism can help with addiction? Um, Addiction is of course there's physical, like with drugs and alcohol and certain substances can have like a physical dependence can happen where the body craves it and it goes through withdrawal symptoms if it doesn't have them. But even with addictions that have the physical dependence, there's a big psychological component to addiction, mental component to addiction. And that's where Buddhist practice and meditation can help, because you're working with your mind, the mental component. You're working with your mind in Buddhist practice to become aware of what these triggers might be about addiction, how the cycle of craving and compulsion is repetitive, and how there's certain, times of day, there's certain events, there's certain emotions that come up that can trigger those things. So that kind of craving and grasping towards whatever thing you're addicted to, and it can be a lot of different things, Addiction also deals with brain chemistry, right? Serotonin levels and, that kind of thing. So that's physical as well, but it's also in direct consort with the mind and thoughts and your reactions to things. So it's definitely Buddhist practice, meditation could be a good component to a recovery program. Addiction is such an insidious, difficult thing that it's often needs kind of a multi-pronged approach, like therapy, professional therapy, someone who, psychiatrist, psychologist who has a drug counselor, if it's a drug thing, or addiction specialist that has experience with, addiction, that can be really essential and helpful, as are support groups. Some being 12-step like AA and NA and things like that, or just support groups of group therapy, people who have dealt with the same kind of addiction. So yeah, definitely can be helpful. I wouldn't say, I would also very, very much recommend though professional help, if it's something that's chronic.
I just want to add to it's really up to us to reprogram ourselves. It's very, very important that we know and, really work with that understanding that, the way we are right now is the way we wired ourselves based on hopes and fears and our ignorance. Hope being like this, attachment quality, fear is being the rejection quality, anger and desire. And very, very important that, when you do meditation in order to liberate and purify yourself, because that's what we do in meditation. We liberate, by understanding our nature, and we purify by taking away those habitual kinds of tendencies. The space of meditation is a really perfect space for this work of purification of the tendencies that have been accumulated over many, many, countless lifetimes. Very important also to address not just the symptoms, but the causes, and really kind of, be honest with oneself and know what are the things that my desire grasps onto so strongly, and at the same time, what are the things that I run away from, that I reject, because those will be kind of the mechanical components to, the things, the complexity of the thing we call addiction. And, the ability to stay with difficult things, and the ability to say, I really want it, but I don't need it. I can be without it, reprogramming ourselves to stay within that kind of space is going to be very, very important. As I said, addressing the causes, the afflictive emotions and ignorance is going to be really, really key. And not only the symptoms. You, of course, will start with the symptoms of purifying your body, the vessel that had suffered so much as a result of certain kinds of choices and then habits. And then eventually, the work has to be done with one's mind. So, it is very much work that we understand that we want to do, that we want to reprogram ourselves, that we want to liberate ourselves. No one can do that for us. We can only liberate ourselves. Even the Buddhas can only show us the path, but they cannot liberate us and cannot take away our karma. It is really up to us. So being very, very clear, having the right kind of motivation, for me always helps to remember that when I am a better being, when I am more conscious, when I am more clear, I am a benefit to others and less of a detriment to others. And that is a huge motivation for us, thinking about how not only it affects, our addiction affects us, but also the way that others have to share in that burden together with us. Sometimes thinking of others can really take us across the finish line, and somewhere ultimately, all addiction starts from a selfish place of self-grasping, something we need so much for ourselves, something we need to avoid, and, we're so unhappy with. So really kind of overcoming that place of selfishness and self-grasping is huge. And the only kind of antidote to that is starting to think about a bigger picture. And, good luck on your journey.
Does Buddhism recommend depriving ourselves of things that give instant gratification? Buddhism doesn't have so much like a strict set of rules, like this is what you should do or what you should give up, in terms of from a, I don't know, societal structure kind of thing, if that makes any sense. It should, what you want to work on are things that cause a lot of attachment, right? So if something gives you instant gratification, say sugar or, I don't know, alcohol or something like that, and you find a strong attachment where it becomes unhealthy, right? you're drinking in the morning, or you're drinking every day, or too much every day, or at work you're eating in a way that's unhealthy and making you sick or giving you diabetes. That it's the attachment to the thing that's the problem. It's not about the gratification. I think a lot of people get confused thinking that there's like this kind of morally wrong thing about gratification, or even a morally wrong thing about desire and stuff. It's not about the it's not about the fact that you're doing. It's the attachment to these things that consistently kind of narrow our view and narrow who we are into this, like, I have to have this. And that becomes this repetitive thing that becomes stronger and stronger. It's very connected to the first question, and easily that kind of thing winds up being an addiction.
And may I add also that in Buddhism, because it is working with the mind, that's what Buddhism is, working with the mind until we liberate ourselves and all sentient beings. We are trying to walk away from being just a response to a trigger, which is a habitual way of being. We're just responses to the triggers, and replace that and reprogram ourselves to be awareness. So when things arise in front of us, we're not just responses, but we're rather beings that have activity based on awareness, rather than just this, give me that, this is mine, I can't be, this kind of childlike ignorant mentality, where again, we're just completely constricted into this response to a trigger, response to habitual behavior, exhibit habitual behavior. No, we're trying to break that open, get out of that little knot, of that little cell of the mind, and walk into and abide in the space of awareness, where things can arise and we can really want them, and we can but we're not always just these responses by triggers things. Rather, we have space of awareness, and we can equally, and in that space of awareness, we try to have an equanimous, we try to equalize experience. If we have bad experience, we're okay with it. We have good experience, we're okay with it. We're not getting attached to great experience and seek pleasure for the rest of the day. Or we're not trying to reject and live in the momentum of just avoiding difficult things, like avoiding difficult people who are, let's say you have a difficult child or a difficult parent. No, we try to have, in the space of awareness, we try to equalize experiences and act out of awareness, rather than simply being triggered in a repetitive manner, mindlessly. Just, wake up, repeat, wake up, refresh, repeat. We want to live in awareness and liberate these kinds of responsive, triggering kind of narrownesses that have become, our lives and our attitudes and our habitual activities. We try to have our activities, expressions of body, speech, and mind come from this open space of awareness, where we're really cultivating virtuous mind, virtuous speech, and virtuous body. So, I hope it helps answer the question.
Someone asked about the five poisons: ignorance, anger, desire. The other two are jealousy and arrogance. Okay, someone just getting started learning about Buddhism, wanting to practice more, where do they begin? Well, we always recommend finding an authentic teacher from an authentic lineage. So Victoria and I are students of Garchen Rinpoche, and we receive teachings as much as we can from other Buddhist masters. We're fellow students talking about our own experience, basically repeating things that our teachers have told us and sharing it with you, kind of at the request of our teacher. But so it's much, much more, it's essential and important to find an authentic teacher from an authentic lineage. We have our suggestions on the Solidago Productions website, which you use to register with books. And not only the books, but these teachers have teachings on YouTube. They have websites where there's teachings. They have live streams that you can get on their email list and sign up for. They have public teachings where you can travel, or maybe if you're lucky enough they're in your town, you can go attend. There's many, many ways to receive teachings. But we really, if any of this is of interest to you, we encourage you to pursue those avenues. This is Tibetan Buddhist tradition. There are other traditions in Buddhism that are all wonderful, but we're just sharing, what we know here. As a college student with a job and extracurriculars, any advice on how to make time for meditation in daily life? Start with very short sessions. We did a 10-minute meditation session today. I am absolutely sure, no matter how busy you are, that you could find 10 minutes, as I'm sure you find much more time than that to go on Instagram and scroll through things and, whatever, go buy a coffee or whatever. 10 minutes, start with that. Do it as part of your morning routine or evening routine. Set a little corner of a room where you can do it, maybe put your cushion there, maybe put something that inspires you, a picture or a little statue or a flower. So that places for that, not for meditation. But it's really going to happen when, your you meditation or this practice, what we're doing, becomes really important to you. That's when it's going to happen. It's not going to happen from me saying it or Victoria saying it or you thinking you should do it. It's going to happen from this becoming important to you and finding the time to do it. Start with very short sessions. Start with 5 minutes, but do it every day.
And maybe multiple times a day. It'll help you in when you feel a moment of tension, sit on a chair and just do a 5-minute meditation of just focusing on your breath. So mind not looking outward with objects, but mind looking inward in my state of mind. And keep bringing the mind back, It's a great beginner practice like that. Also, I just wanted to add that the 5 afflictions, their true nature, their ground nature, the 5 afflictions, the nature of the 5 afflictions are also the 5 wisdoms. So when we can purify, kind of rub away the dirt, these afflictions, we don't need to pursue anything anywhere else, just as our Buddhahood is our true nature, and we don't need to seek it or get it or buy it anywhere. It is inside us. What the problem is, why we dwell in a state of ignorance, is it's almost like when they say that a beggar lives on a pile of jewels. A beggar who may sleep, with jewels that are covered by mud. That's how we live. Our ignorance is the mud, and the jewel is our true nature. The same with the 5 afflictions. The 5 afflictions are the 5 wisdoms. So in a moment when you feel jealous of someone, flip the light on and be able to say one of the 4 immeasurables, rejoice for someone's what they have. And then also feel completely that what you have is more than enough, that there is a generosity and that your being is bathing in it. And just be okay with where you are and what there is there for you. Find an ability to stay with what there is and where you are. And that is, that's the wisdom of equanimity. That is one of the 5 poisons of jealousy. All the 5 poisons, and that's a topic for another conversation. Maybe we should cover it in the next time. But don't be despondent. The 5 poisons in their state when they're purified are also the 5 wisdoms, which are like basic and core to our nature.
Best place to travel to learn firsthand from teachers. It's more important to find a teacher and then go to where they are, as I explained just before.
There's so many teachings available online. You can even take refuge online, but look at teachers with lineage, unbroken lineage. The thing about Buddhism is not just getting it from students like us. We also have lineage because we study with Garchen Rinpoche who has an unbroken lineage, but go to a master, find a master with true lineage, not just somebody who just wrote a book here today and it's become popular on the market. Find someone of true breeding, from master to master to master to master, where the word of the Buddha has been descends, from a historical Buddha pretty much to us in an unbroken chain. It's very important. Find someone you like and then go and meet them in person and check them out for yourself.
Is it okay to drink coffee before meditating? Yes,
Sure.
absolutely. Does yoga count as meditation? Um, yoga's yoga. It's a very physical practice. There's a mindful element to it, and sometimes at the end of yoga class, there's a period where sometimes you lay down and you rest, or maybe there's a meditation there. I don't really know that much about yoga, but um, try not, especially if you're a beginner, try to stick to the formal. I'm going to sit on a cushion and meditate, rather than some people say, well, I walk in the park and that's like a meditation, or painting is my meditation, or gardening's my meditation. Gardening is gardening. It can have meditative qualities, meaning that something very calming about that, something that you like, outside distractions kind of go away. Gardening and walking in the park, they're wonderful things, but uh, until you have a strong foundation in this sitting meditation, because when you're doing sitting meditation, you're really just, there's nothing else to take you away from your mind. Well, your body and your mind, because your body's a big part of it. You know, you're not engaged in another physical activity like walking, walking in the park. Oh, you see a tree, isn't that beautiful? So your mind is already on this. You're gardening, this plant, oh, this plant is dying, this needs food. So now your mind is engaged in that. It's not just engaged in itself, watching itself. So I think it's very important to start with just this formal sitting, calm abiding practice that we do here, um, and see how it goes. Commit to that for a while.
And yoga is a good preliminary because yoga can kind of make you aware of the more subtle breath, of the more subtle physical aspect of your body. The subtle body and the subtle mind, non-conceptual mind, go together. But yoga is an activity in and for itself, whereas meditation, mind is its own object and not something else. Because when we're thinking of other things, we're just in our conceptual mind. Not to make a mistake that just because it's pleasant that we're meditating, even though meditation does have this aspect of restfulness and therefore some kind of a pleasant quality, because our conceptual mind relaxes. But the quality of meditation has to do with mind turned inward on itself, really being in its space of awareness. Whereas when, as Michael said, paying attention to the body is the object. And so we are now in conceptual territory.
Yeah. I find that closing my eyes during meditation helps me focus, as opposed to focusing on an object. Is this suitable? When I'm saying resting your gaze on something, I'm not saying focus on the object. I think that's where maybe I'm not being clear. So if I'm sitting here, right, and even if there's something very specific, say there's the Buddha in front of me, right? Now I'm meditating. Now I can kind of do this kind of cross-eyed focus where I can't see anything clearly, right? So that kind of, maybe I'm thinking the fact that I can't see anything clearly kind of blocks everything out in my, in the world that I'm seeing. Or I can really focus on this Buddha. Focus on this object and seeing all these details. Those are two things that are kind of good to avoid during meditation, right? So you don't have to, alter your vision so it's unfocused to focus your mind. Nor do you have to just intensely focus on this object in order to focus your mind. It's kind of like you're just resting your gaze on whatever is in front of you and not paying attention to it. I think that might be, maybe give that a try and see how that works for you.
But a lot of meditation is done with eyes closed. The only issue for beginners, the eyes closed, often can lead to even more active fantasy element. So it's just paying attention that you really are in the space of awareness rather than with closed eyes. There is a great deal of conceptual activity going on. Usually, for the beginners, there is what is called shamatha. We start with resting meditation, and there's placement meditation for the mind to feel stability and not run around after thoughts and just be confused that sitting and running after thoughts is meditating. The quality of meditation is that the mind can rest in its own space. So placement meditation for beginners, you could do it with impure object, like any object, a rock, a leaf, whatever, or a pure object, like a Buddha. Then you start to once your mind can get stability, you start to move away onto a breath. There are multiple layers to that placement meditation, and it becomes more and more and more subtle. The only thing is for beginners, it's difficult because the mind can close eyes and just go off like into a dream reality and just, continue narratives. That's the important thing, is that you become aware that you can be stable in placing your mind and stay within the space of awareness rather than weave narrative stories. If you can, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And also in placement meditation without object, gaze is very, very soft. Because ultimately, after we pass through placement meditation, shamatha placement meditation on pure or impure or, more subtle object like breath, then we're told to simply take a dot in space. What's a dot in space? It's just resting your gaze very, very softly, seeing and not focusing and grasping onto the things in front of you. And that gives us this ability that when our eyes are open and when we perceive harsh things, we can still don't have to lose our stability, and our mind can still stay present to its space of awareness. That's a very helpful thing of having our eyes open.
How can meditation help with negative self-talk and thoughts of not being good enough or not achieving what I should? Most of my thoughts while meditating seem to be negatively directed at myself.
Just when you're meditating, remember thoughts, this whole conceptual process, this bubbles rising up and dissolving, rising up and dissolving, is not what we focus on. We focus on space of awareness. That we started the whole session today by staying in the space of awareness, touching the bare space of awareness relaxes this judgment. Remember, these are just habitual patterns. This I am bad, I am good, I am great, I am horrible. These are habitual patterns. This whole ego with the afflicted mind, and we just get into that habitual narrative weaving. But the point of meditation is to stay focused on the space of awareness, not on the little risings and fallings. So drop this whole thought process, drop the weaving of the mind weaving little stories. And of course, what are these, analyze, why this, habitual propensity for judging yourself in such a way. You want to be a better person, make aspirations. Say, when I get off of my seat and I walk into the world, I will correct this and this and this situation and work on that, but still do that being connected to the space of awareness. These judgments are simply thoughts, emotions, judgments, fantasies, memories. Those are all mental events. We're trying to connect to the space of where these mental events take place, the space of cognizance, the luminous space of cognition, our bare space of awareness, and try to start to identify more with that spaciousness rather than that tightness of those bubbles rising up, because that activity, is incessant. The whole point of meditation is to ease the activity. Watch from the distance. Don't be so in it. I am like this, I am like that. Those are just, the activity of conceptual mind. I mean, this whole negative or over pumping yourself and saying I'm so great, as opposed to I am so terrible, they're kind of similar, and we have to drop all of that in order to have what we call meditation. Meditation is exactly distancing from this bubble process and connecting to the ocean of awareness rather than these constant little, flickerings on the surface, the conceptual mind activity. So just ease off, and drop these habits. Try to dismantle them. Like I said before, it is up to us to reprogram ourselves and ease off on this judgment. It may help you to think like this: whatever that space of that negativity that you are, forcing onto yourself when you're looking at yourself as an object of your awareness, you're probably projecting that same thing onto others, because what do we meet in the world if not our intrinsic state of mind? So if we're very habituated to negative thoughts, whether they're regarding ourselves, for sure, these same patterns are going to emerge when you encounter objects and others in the world. It may help you become, it may help you free your mind of these habitual tendencies by saying, well, if I am engaged in this very habitual, negative, habitual process regarding myself, I am 100% engaging in that same activity when I engage and look at others. It may really help you to purify negativity, because ultimately, what are we doing in meditation? We are unhabituating and breaking down and purifying negativity in meditation. So it's kind of a blessing, it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing to be aware that we have these negative tendencies, but if we're not working on purify them, then we're just indulging and creating more negativity. So take it as a blessing, say, oh, I see these this negativity, and start to unprogram yourself from having this attachment and constantly engaging and indulging these habitual patterns. Start breaking down these habitual patterns by letting them loose. Let them arise, but don't be so attached that you're like saying, this is me. No, you are the space of awareness. And these little processes, you are the ocean, you are the sky, and these little thoughts are the clouds. Stop identifying with the clouds, with the bubbles, and start identifying with the spaciousness. And also keep in mind that these negative things internally are like this and painful, and they are another word for suffering. Because, any judgment of that negativity is itself a suffering. And when you put your gaze toward others in the world, 100% you will be replicating the same process of judging on the outside, and that's the same suffering that you'll be again seeing and experiencing as a result of that vision. So start to pull that vision apart, and you pull that vision apart by also distancing yourself and relaxing that vision. Watch the bubbles arising with more relaxed, spacious attitude, and eventually it'll become less and less and less, because habitual tendencies are formed by this fusion of negativity, the propensity and affliction, and identification. Identification is ignorance that binds us to this negativity. And start to kind of err more on the side of spaciousness and clarity, and let these things arise, but let them kind of like arise in the distance. Watch it like a movie, and don't identify, and the narrative will stop being so tense and so solidified, and little by little the tendencies will subside. It's just our addiction to negativity that you're experiencing your intrinsic world in that way, because what you're describing is just a conceptual process. It's not really a space of meditation.
Okay. If we didn't get to a question and you really need to ask it, you can go to the email, Michael Imperioli Meditation 101 @gmail. And books that we recommend are on the website, Solidago Productions website. Okay, let's dedicate the merit from today's session to the benefit of all beings. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be
liberated from this ocean of samsara and its bounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks,
Thank
Nick,
you,
our
everyone.
producer. See you next time.